Ladies and gentlemen, today I'll be discussing on mathematics. On mathematics today, I'll be talking about one of the branch of mathematics called trigonometry. On trigonometry today, I'll be discussing trigonometry identity proof. On trigonometry identity proof, I'll also be discussing the proof of a trigonometry identity using the conjugate method to solve our problems. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I was told that trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that deals with a relationship between angles and sides of triangles, specifically the right angle triangle. I was also told that trigonometry came from two Greek words: trigono, which means angles, and metron, which means measures. In combination, we say the measurement of angles. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I was also told that trigonometry was introduced by one of the greatest mathematicians today, called Hipparchus. But there were so many mathematicians who made a contribution to the branch of trigonometry today. And some of those mathematicians were Ptolemy, Aryabhata, and Muhammad Abid Musa al-Khwarizmi. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, there is something called logical reasoning from hypothesis to conclusion is proof. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be proving our mathematical problem. And our problem is prove that 1 minus cos theta over sin theta will be equal to sin theta over 1 plus cos theta. How do we prove this mathematical problem? Before solving this mathematical problem, we say solution. On our solution today, we'll be using the left hand side in order to prove the right hand side. In using the left hand side, we say 1 minus cos theta over sin theta. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, this is the left hand side of our mathematical problem. So on this note, we'll be using the method called the conjugate method in order to solve our mathematical problem. On our conjugate method, for example, we say the conjugate of A minus B is just equal to A plus B. Likewise, the conjugate of A plus B is definitely equal to A minus B. So we'll be using the conjugate method to solve our mathematical problem. So the same thing applies here. The conjugate of 1 minus cos theta is just equal to 1 plus cos theta. And the conjugate of 1 plus cos theta is just equal to 1 minus cos theta. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be using 1 plus cos theta to multiply both the numerator and the denominator. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, we say 1 minus cos theta over sin theta. We put this in the parenthesis. We say parenthesis open. What do we have? 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes, over 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be using our mathematical problem to solve. And our mathematical problem says, parenthesis open, we have 1 minus cos theta, parenthesis closes, another one open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes, over sin theta, parenthesis open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll multiply the numerators and the denominator will remain constant. In how much, ladies and gentlemen? We say we'll multiply the values in the first parenthesis by the values in the second parenthesis. So we say 1 times 1, automatically we'll get 1. What do we have here? Plus 1 times cos theta is cos theta, Minus cos theta times 1 is minus cos theta. And minus cos theta times cos theta is minus cos square theta over what we have sin theta, parenthesis open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be looking at our mathematical problem to solve. In looking at our mathematical problem, we say cos theta minus cos theta, automatically we can solve. What do? We say 1 positive times negative will be equal to negative. What do we have here? We have cos square theta over, or we have sin theta, parenthesis open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be using our mathematical problem to solve. In using our mathematical problem to solve, we'll be using one of the identity called the Pythagorean identity that was introduced by Pythagoras. Pythagoras also introduced the Pythagorean theory, which is c squared will be equal to a squared plus b squared. And the Pythagorean identity is also referred to as the fundamental trigonometry identity. On this note, we say all our Pythagorean identities. We said our identity says sin square theta plus cos square theta is just equal to 1. That means 1 will be equal to sin square theta plus cos square theta. And sin square theta plus cos square theta will just be equal to 1. Just to prove 1 minus cos square theta. So we'll be using the Pythagorean identity. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be making sin square theta to be the subject, just to get 1 minus cos square theta to solve our mathematical problem. So we say in how much? Making sin square theta to be the subject, we say sin square theta will be equal to, the guy is positive. When we say the guy across, automatically the guy become negative. So we say sin square theta will be equal to 1 minus cos square theta. So you see, 1 minus cos square theta will give us sin square theta. And sin square theta itself will automatically give us 1 minus cos square theta. So we already have this guy. So 1 minus cos square theta will just give us sin square theta. And sin square theta will give us 1 minus cos square theta. So we'll be using sin square theta just to represent the guy. So 1 minus cos square theta now will just be equal to sin square theta over what we have. We have sin theta, parenthesis open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, we apply the basic trigonometry identity just to get sin square theta. In applying this identity, we say sin theta times sin theta will just give us sin square theta, because sin theta times sin theta will give us sin square theta over what we have, sin theta, parenthesis open, 1 plus cos theta, parenthesis closes. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, why we did this? We did it because we want sin theta and sin theta automatically to cancel, and we'll be left with sin theta. So sin theta over what we have, 1 plus cos theta. Ladies and gentlemen, these are already been proven mathematically. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, 1 minus cos theta over sin theta automatically will give us sin theta over 1 plus cos theta. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me on this math journey. Keep practicing, keep pushing limit, stay curious, and let us cross those derivatives. Always remember that mathematics is the key. Don't forget to like, share, stay tuned, subscribe, and comment in the comment section. Once again, I'm B. Wamasa Jr., popularly or commonly known as Chachi, the all-time record breaker. Thank you.